Warm and friendly greetings to you, honorable guest Dr. Sonia Livingstone, and to all the viewers who are following the 7th episode of the Voice of the Expert, which is a monthly program organized by the Center of Measurement and Evaluation in Education and Development. This program takes place in a particular context marked by the proliferation of a series of crises in our contemporary life taking many forms: health, economic, social, political, environmental, etc. And of course, all the repercussions and effects that they induce at all levels. It's also changing and evolving context characterized by rapid global transformations and the emergence of new challenges, such as knowledge explosion, technological development, and digital revolution. All of this requires seeking central and vital place for the expert in any field. The Voice of the Expert program aims to highlight characteristics, interests, and contributions of experts in various fields. It also aims to find out their expectations and prospective perceptions on different topics in their fields of expertise. Today is the 7th episode of this program, in which I have the honor and the pleasure to welcome and interview our dear guest, Dr. Sonia Livingstone. Thank you, Sonia, for accepting this invitation.
Thank you so much for inviting me today, and I'm delighted to meet your audience, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you again. So I start by quickly introducing our honorable guest, who has a great CV with several activities in teaching, leadership, consulting, and research. So Dr. Sonia Livingstone is professor in the Department of Media and Communications at the London School of Economics and Political Science. She has advised the numerous international organizations like the Council of Europe, the European Commission, the European Parliament, the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, the OECD, the ITU, and the UNIC. She chaired essays Truth, Trust and Technology Commission, and is currently leading the Digital Future Commissions with the Five Rights Foundation. Her research examines how changing conditions of mediation reshape everyday practices and possibilities for action. She has published a large number of papers and book chapters and more than 20 books on media audiences, children and young people's risk and opportunities, media literacy and rights in the digital environments. She has received several of honors, like 6 honorary doctorates, medals, and prizes. Without delay, the first words for you, Dr. Sonia, before we begin to address axes of the episode.
You'd like me to say a few words about, what, sorry, say that again. What was the question?
So before, if you have some words to
Sure.
say before we begin to address axes of the episode.
Okay.
About the opportunity, for example, about this opportunity.
So it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak today. I'm flattered that you ask me as the voice of the expert. Certainly, I've been researching and teaching in my field for some decades, so I am always delighted to pass on everything I have learned.
Okay, thank you. So the interview will be articulated around 4 axes. The first one, professional experiences and consulting activities, and research interests and achievements. The third, nature of career, and the fourth, future perspectives. So we began by the first axis, professional experiences and consulting activities. My first question, Dr. Sonia, you are professor of social psychology at the Department of Media and Communications and the London School of Economics and Political Science. What task do you take on in this position?
I have a regular professorial appointment at the London School of Economics and Political Science, LSE. So my life is divided between teaching and research primarily. We are a graduate-only department, so I teach master's students in the field of media and communication, and I do a range of research projects. And then on occasion, when I'm asked, I also do contribute to the management of the university.
Okay, thank you. Question 2, you have held several academic positions. What you consider your proper best practices? So, especially what you practice and enjoy as good. Academic position. So, in teaching, assessing students, supervising and advising, and finally doing research.
I think for me, what's really valuable and what's really important is that I have the opportunity to bring together the research and the teaching. So we do what we call research-led teaching. And that means I can always find ways to bring the latest research into my teaching, but also my research benefits from my teaching, because my students are young and critical and demanding, and they if my research ideas don't work, they will tell me. So I do like to think of a dialogue between the research and the teaching, and also between the professor and the students. And perhaps this is crucial as a good practice. And that also means always trying to listen to the current concerns, questions and developments in the field, but also in the mind of students and the people that are called stakeholders. A lot of my research is directed to government, to educators, to civil society, to organizations outside the university. So I think of myself as doing a lot of dialogue, a lot of listening as well as talking, and a lot of building bridges between different disciplines, different parts of the university, different parts of society that would like to know about research.
Mm-hmm. So Sonia, the same question, but now for administrative positions. What you consider your proper best practices in managing human, material, and financial resources?
Well, I think I've learned quite a lot about management over the years. I really value being in an organization which is well managed. I'm fortunate in that LSE is a very well managed organization, and it makes it easier to do a job well. But I have learned good practices are to identify and address problems as quickly as you can, not to leave them. To consult people at all levels who are affected by any decision, and to yes, to consult, but also to take the lead when necessary, to make sure that there is a process of development, ideas are taken forward, and to be really clear what are the results and sometimes the failures of a management process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another question concerns consultations. You conducted several consultations with many national and international organizations in different fields and for a variety of subjects. So what are the important subjects of these consultations and what are your main contributions? If you give me some important.
Yes, well, I will highlight the work that I've done over the last 10 years probably on children's rights in relation to the digital environment, digital technologies. For me, this has been a fantastically productive line of research. I should say perhaps that my research has for a long time focused on how children and families engage with digital technologies. And a child rights approach, drawing on the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, has become a framework which has opened doors to consultative roles with the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, with the Council of Europe, with a number of other civil society organizations and sometimes governments. And what I value about that is that there is a clear framework in the nature of the convention that everyone agrees, and then there is a very clear puzzle that everyone would like to solve, which is how do we implement rights to safety, to privacy, to learning in relation to technology? What does that really mean? How can it be done? So the problem is real. The framework is clear and ambitious, and there is a big need for research, as I see it, so that the decisions are really based in evidence.
Okay, now please tell us about your experiences abroad, the best of them that you have had an impact on your professional career. What activities and achievements for these best experiences?
My family sometimes think that I am never at home. I'm always traveling abroad to many places, though the pandemic has changed that. Sometimes, you know, when academics travel, we go to the airport, we go in a taxi to the hotel, we do an event, and we come home, and we never see where we are. So, to my mind, the best travel is when I am properly somewhere else, and I can understand something. I have time and opportunity to explore the perspective of those that I'm visiting or collaborating with, and that does take time, but it does mean learning a lot more about the different struggles, the different priorities, the different ways of thinking of researchers and research users, really, in different parts of the world. So an example might be for a project I did doing with UNICEF called Global Kids Online. We set out to do a survey of children's use of the internet in many countries. And then I went to present this work in South American countries, especially in Brazil and Chile. And that was wonderful. I had to meet the stakeholders there, meet the representatives who could make some change, but really take time to listen to how they saw things, but also use the fact that I was from outside to offer a hope, something of value.
Okay, another question on True Commission. You chair the Truth, Trust and Technology Commission of LSE, and you lead the Digital Futures Commission with Five Rights Foundation. So what tasks performed and what contributions made in this two positions until now?
So so the idea of a commission is that I chair or I sit in the middle, but the commission has commissioners, and the commissioners are significant, influential experts in their own right, who sit around the table, actually or virtually, and want to meet a real challenge. So for truth, trust, and technology, the challenge was fake news, or disinformation. And the question was, how do we bring together different commissioners' experience and different areas to think about journalism, about digital platforms, about the public's level of understanding, about the influence on politics, very diverse parts of the problem. And we all put our heads together for a year, and we tried very hard to make a report, which I think was very balanced and sensible. Of course, researchers would always like their ideas taken more account of, but I think it set out a framework and shed some light. With the Digital Futures Commission, we are a little more interventionist. So we're a commission thinking about children's rights in the digital world. The commissioners are from regulation, from industry, from civil society, from academia, from the different parts of the kind of ecosystem. And the task is really to shift the discourse from just thinking about children's lives in terms of safety and protection, and thinking also about their engagement, their agency, their potential. And so the question I ask myself every morning is not only what are the problems to be solved, but also what does good look like? How do we set out a normative vision of what would be better? And this is still in process, so I don't yet know if we will succeed in persuading others of our vision.
Okay, I know that you have won numerous of honors, awards, and prizes. If you can describe the top 3 awards among them.
Well, perhaps the most prestigious in my country is the OBE, embarrassingly named the Order of the British Empire, because of course the British Empire is no more. But it's an honor from the monarch, the Queen, then, and it recognizes a kind of a career achievement and contribution to the country. So that was nice, and it was for services to children and child internet safety. So I was glad of that. I have several honorary doctorates from other universities. This is very flattering and delightful, and offers perhaps recognition from other countries. And I was relatively recently made a fellow of the British Academy, which is Britain's kind of elite organization for academics. So now I have a chance to meet brilliant people and do perhaps something influential. It's a platform in a way, an opportunity.
Okay, so before moving to the second axe, Sonia, if you have anything to add on this first axis.
No, I think we covered a lot. I mean, my professional life is nearly all of my life, and I juggle many activities together. But I think we covered a lot.
Okay, so thank you. Now the second axe, research interests and achievements. Your research interests include various areas. Children, media, internet. Some example of topics, the opportunities and the risks afforded by digital and online technologies, children and young people's experience of digital media and and school at home and school developments in media and digital literacies, the implications of the changing media environment for audiences, publics, and the public sphere, and generally research that impacts on policy and practice to enhance how citizen values can be embedded in the communication infrastructures of institutions, regulations, and the life world. So many topics. We will discuss each of these topics in depth to know the subject studied and the main contributions or achievements you have done. So my first question concerns the area or the topic of internet and children. Question that refers to your book in preparation. Is the internet and more generally digital technology good for children and young people?
Yeah, it's I should never have set this question for my book title, because the answer is, of course, it depends. And it depends on the child and on the context and on the world that they grow up in. But I would say I do try to be led by the views of children to some degree, and children all love the internet. For them, they are glad to grow up in a digital world, and they love its possibilities. What they don't love, and what I would be critical of, is the ways in which it is not designed usually for children, but designed for adults. It's not designed usually for the public good, but for commercial profit. And it's not usually designed for children in the places where they live, but it's designed as a kind of a global global phenomenon, which is not specific to different, and not sufficiently specific to the different contexts where children live. So I think it's not as good for them as it should be, and it's often really problematic for children, and a lot needs to change to realize its potential.
Okay, another question which concerns the area of media. What are the research questions studied, and what are the main results that you found?
So I've been researching media for now about 30 years, and I think I've lived through a transformation from the days when the media was an object, a phone or a television or a computer that you had in your hand, and then you could use it or you could do something else. And today, some decades on, everything is mediated, and everything we do involves media in some way. And our phone is always in our hand, and our TV is always on, and our computer is always in front of us. We need it for everything. So for me, what really is important is that media have become part of the infrastructure, a bit like electricity or water or railways. They've become part of the infrastructure of modern life. And that raises new questions about influence, as always, about effects and persuasion, as always, but also about equality and inclusion, about whose purposes are being served by these technologies, about the spaces for our public debate and deliberation when everything is underpinned by commercial platforms. And some challenges to governments, because the governments are used to regulating nationally, and now they must regulate these enormously powerful global platforms. So I think we have some familiar questions, but also many new questions, and media as a term is becoming very, very broad.
Okay, and for the area of protection of children in cyberspace, what are the same question? What are the research questions studied, and what are the main results that you found?
So I think the key questions are to understand what we need to protect children from and how common are the problems and how many children are affected, and then what works, what should be done that is effective. So in our Global Kids Online research, we find different problems affect children in different parts of the world, but generally the main things are cyberbullying, approaches from ill-intentioned or abusive adults, pornography, and hate. And then there is also growing attention to the problem of other kinds of harmful images, suicide images, and so forth. So the list of problems is growing, but these are the top ones. And what we find is that for mild manifestations of the problems, children would like to be empowered to deal with them themselves. They would like to have tools in their hand. They would like to have education to make them aware, and they would like to be kind of empowered. But for the worst problems and the persistent problems, we need other kinds of solutions in regulation because children cannot deal with the worst of the bullying, the worst of the abuse, and so forth. So, and then we discover that parents can play a valuable role, but often parents are very frightened, and parents want to just restrict and keep their children safe. So, but what works better is if parents can also educate and empower their children and themselves so that everyone uses the internet more wisely.
Okay, in exploring your publication, I found some works on the area of teaching and learning in the digital age. If you have developed any reflection about this area.
So I would venture to say that there is a lot of exaggeration about how technologies can really help learning. Children like to learn with a screen sometimes, but they also say it makes their eyes tired. They don't always want to talk to a screen. They want to have a teacher. They want to do activities. The evidence that technology is really transforming education is absent. So I would say technology should remain a tool, but not become the overall goal of learning and education. And going back to the research questions you asked me about before, one of the really difficult research questions is that we really want to know how what we do now with children will affect them when they grow up in 10 or 20 years. And this is a research question that is so hard to study because we don't get funding for 10 or 20 years, and it's difficult to work with children for that long. But it does mean that we don't really know what are the long-term effects of this enormous digital experiment we are living through.
Another area, Sonia, children's rights in the digital age. Same question, research subject studied, and the main achievements.
So I think there are lots of questions there because children, in the Convention on the Rights of the Child, children have many rights, and each of them can and should be researched carefully. I've just finished a project on children's play, and we asked whether their play online is as good, as enriching, as fulfilling as their play offline. And we found that it is not, that playing offline, playing in the park, playing in the street, playing in the house is still more rewarding and more creative than playing online. And one reason is that playing online turns out to be quite restrictive of what children can think of for themselves and what they can invent for themselves. So that would be one example. A second might be that children's rights are always to be realized according to their age, according to their maturity, according to what's called their evolving capacity. So children who are 5 years old need a different attention from children who are 10 or 15. And this is very hard to provide in relation to digital technologies. So the need is significant, but the delivery is falling short.
I hope that I have covered all of your areas of research. But if you want to add more about your research interests and your main contributions.
Well, I will add one thing. I've just finished a big report on the digital experiences of young people who are struggling with mental health difficulties. And we are being told now that we are living through a mental health crisis. I don't know if this is the same for you, but we hear it, especially after the pandemic. So I'm proud to have spent some time talking to young people and understanding the very intense opportunities and risks, opportunities for help, opportunities for support, but also risks of vulnerability and exploitation that they experience in digital contexts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Now we move to the third axis, nature of experts' career. How was the academic and professional road? A road of flowers or a road with obstacles and difficulties? So let's start with the positive. We know that the success factors are diverse and quite numerous. Some are intrinsic and others are extrinsic. What are the most important success factors that help to create your academic or professional path?
There are several. One is that I was fortunate enough to undertake my studies, my university education, at a time when the government paid for everything. This is no longer the case in Britain and probably not the case in most countries, but I was fortunate they paid all the way to the end of my PhD. Not a lot, but enough. So I had that opportunity. I was also fortunate in finding wonderful mentors. And I think senior academics, senior scholars who supported me and kind of took my hand and showed me the way at some very important times. When my first academic paper was rejected, they helped me. When I was finishing my doctoral studies and needed a job, they helped me. You know, at some really crucial moments, I was very fortunate to have good mentors. And then perhaps more controversially, I think I've been helped by working very hard, too hard probably, to ensure that I worked in high status institutions. And I have to be honest, because that means they have better resourcing and more good professional practices, and a lot of opportunities come their way. So I think it was wise a long time ago that I decided that I was fortunate to get a job at the London School of Economics, and it's in the middle of London. And many people pass through and many things happen in London. And, you know, these are all gave me opportunities to find different paths and pursue things.
This is for positive. Now, if in a negative in your career, are there any difficulties, problems, or obstacles that have negatively affected your academic or professional path?
Well, we live, again, different academic cultures may be different, but in Britain, we live in a context of increasing pressure, overwork, and stress. So I would also say my my institution is a very stressful place. My department tries hard, but it's still quite stressful. And I work too hard, and I work all the hours and all the days. So I think stress and overwork and a very poor work-life balance is a reality, and is a problem. I think there are areas of research or work that are easier to pursue than others. And in the last 15 years, in my research on children and their digital lives, I have found many doors opened that were not there before. So I used to do research on audiences for television, audiences, engagement with media, and nobody really wanted to know. It was not a subject that led to questions or opportunities or partnerships or consultancies. So I felt, the opportunities were not there. So I made a big switch to overcome those problems. But nothing terrible. I'm very fortunate.
Okay. Are there any personal failures or mistakes in your academic or professional path? Personal?
No, of course not. Absolutely not. I don't know. No, I'm joking. It might be that other people should point out my mistakes. I know that it's sometimes hard to know what to work on and what to not work on. I've written articles that no one ever read. This seems a failure to me. It took a lot of time and no one was interested. I have sometimes been so overwhelmed that I couldn't do everything well. So I've done some work that I'm not so proud of. But I think I've had a fairly fortunate career and good advice throughout.
Okay. Now we can start the first axis, perceptions and projections towards the future. My first question, what are the contributions that you consider the most important of your academic career and your various consultations, which you defend each time and which can be put in place for use?
When I look over my work and my career, I see several common themes, which I would say are my key contributions. One is that I always try to do research which sees the problem from the perspective of the ordinary people. Whether it's the audiences watching television or the children engaging with the media or the young people with the mental health difficulties. I like to find the people who are not being heard and make the kind of methodological effort really to go and find where they are and listen to their perspective and bring it. And often it is unwelcome. Experts would rather say they already know what children think. They already know what ordinary people think. Ordinary people are stupid anyway. There's a big dismissal. So I think trying to bring in the voice of ordinary people and those who are not heard has been crucial. And something else I noticed that I do across all my work is that I try to work in a way that is multidisciplinary and bridges divides. So I try to bring together the micro experience with the macro analysis. I try to bring together the critical insights with the policy realities. I try to bring together the technologists with the lawyers and the social scientists. So I'm a bit of a bridge builder, and I think that generates deeper insights about, for example, children's rights in the digital world, because you must understand children, you must understand technology, and you must understand rights and regulation. and usually people stay in their separate spaces, so I try to bring those together, and I think that in itself is a contribution.
Okay. Sonia, do you have any outstanding or open question or problem that has not yet been addressed in your areas of research? Or more generally, if you, in your opinion, what are the important topics which are not yet addressed by researchers relatively to the areas of children, media, and digital?
One I already mentioned, I think it's the question of long-term consequences, because it is so difficult. And another, you will appreciate as a quantitative researcher, is trying to understand the demography, if you like, of both problems and opportunities. Really, who is included, who is excluded, what is the distribution of learning online or playing in digital spaces, so that we understand properly who is included or not. But long-term consequences is a challenge. And I think that there are some big, in a way, historical questions that we haven't yet answered about what really is changing. We can call it a digital transformation, but really are things changing? And in what regard? What was different 30 years ago from now? It's hard to say. Was family life better 30 years ago? Is education better now? We don't have very good ways of answering the kind of longer term historical questions about fundamental change.
Okay, Sonia, another projection question. What is the future of digital technologies and their effects on children and young people, in your opinion?
Well, I said that I'd witnessed over 30 years the move from objects in our rooms to an infrastructure. I think the next phase is going to be the embedding of technology in the wall, in the street, in the body and clothes. We still think of technologies in terms of screens, and we're about to go without the screen, and it will be sensors, artificial intelligence, and embedded technologies. And I think we are nowhere near even framing the right research questions for this. But we're quite fearful. We've seen the science fiction.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and for the media, what is the future of media in digital age? This age will be strengthened and expanded in the future.
It will. And I also fear that it will become increasingly commercial and increasingly, because the profit motive is so strong. I fear for public service media. I fear for public spaces and less profitable, but perhaps more creative media contents. I see the increasing dominance of the most profitable and the most globalized. I fear for local production. I fear for small language communities. I think there are many ways in which the media have supported diverse and interesting cultural possibilities which are being squeezed out by the major platforms.
Another question, you know that the context today is very particular, characterized mainly by the knowledge explosion and the digital revolution. All this will expand and will develop in the future. What will be the future of education, and especially what will be the nature of education that will produce qualified human resources?
I fear that the future of education will be wonderful for those who are privileged. and problematic or absent for those who are not. Because we're also living through an age, I think, of increasing inequalities and forms of exclusion. So, of course, all technologies and social transformation is in many ways an explosion of information and expertise and resources, and it's wonderful. But I think only those with the education living in the cities, in the wealthier places, will have this benefit. And for many people, they will be on the wrong side, on the outside. So I do think it is becoming more unequal. And we've lost sight, haven't we, I think, of the idea of education for the whole person, educational values that include the whole person, the good society, the maybe I'm a bit of a kind of enlightenment thinker. I like the idea of inclusion and debate and rationality. I think these are going. We are getting skills to compete in a high pressure society. I don't welcome that.
The last question in this axis, what are your ambitions and future plans?
I want to go back into history. I've spent a lot of my career thinking what is coming next all the time. Now I want to write a book which will look over perhaps a century of childhood and understand what really changed on a longer term trajectory as we moved from cinema and radio to all things digital and embedded. So I'm excited by that idea.
Okay, Sonia, if you have any ending words before close the episode.
Just to say, I think this is the academy is a brilliant career. I know people often find it pressured and difficult and rarefied, a bit esoteric, but I do think it is a brilliant and privileged way to spend to work. And so for those who are listening and who are new to this, I wish them all the very best.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonia. We are now coming to the end of the episode 7 of the Voice of the Expert program, in which we have the honor of inviting our dear guest, Dr. Sonia Livingstone. Thank you, Sonia, for having responded favorably to the invitation and for having nourished the discussion by rich and varied information from your academic and professional career. All the luck and success for your future activities. Thank you again, and
thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you.